Hi, I'm Rick Albert, and welcome to The Key to the City of Angels, the podcast where we unlock the secrets of Los Angeles real estate. With over 300 real estate deals under my belt, I've seen it all, from house hacking strategies that build wealth to helping clients close multi-million-dollar deals in one of the most competitive markets in the world. Every week, I'll bring you expert insights, market trends, and inspiring success stories to help you navigate the LA real estate scene. Whether you're a first-time buyer, an investor, or just curious about what it takes to thrive in the City of Angels, this podcast is your guide to making smarter decisions and achieving your goals. So grab your keys. It's time to unlock your path to prosperity in Los Angeles real estate. Hello, everyone. Rick Albert here, the host of The Key to the City of Angels. Today, I'm super excited to bring on Steve Franco. Steve, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me. Very much. Appreciate it.
Yeah, so why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do, how you got into it, all that fun stuff.
Yeah, so now I'm a broker. I wholesale. I own some rentals. I do very few flips. I'm building 2 self-storage facilities, buying 1 mobile home park, a little bit of everything. I do a little bit of private lending and also some DSCR lending. So a little bit of everything. I got into it back when I was still in TV production, and the brother and I bought a warehouse together. Then when we refinanced that warehouse, it happened to be the late '07. And then market crash. We're like, okay, now's the time to throw some money at rental real estate. So we get into that. I started wholesaling before I knew there was a word for that. I thought I invented something, and from there. And yeah, so that's how I got here.
Very nice. And this is mostly like what states, what areas are you doing a lot of work in?
Mostly northeastern Pennsylvania, mostly East Coast, but primarily northeastern Pennsylvania, Allentown, north of Scranton, what everyone knows as the Scranton, but pretty much the northeast corner. Looking at some deals in Ohio and a few other places. Primarily, I do because I do rentals and I can consult with people across the country on rental incomes and property management and teaching them wholesaling and so forth. I focus on cash flow a lot more than appreciation, which Scranton's your smaller flyover markets are really great on cash flow. They're not so great always on appreciation. Remember, forget the last few years. Everyone had great appreciation the last few years, historical.
Yeah.
So if you look in Scranton, we can get 12, 14, 16, 18% returns. If you're in a major market that has appreciation opportunities like in LA or Philly or whatever, you're probably in the lower to mid single digits on cash flow. So I focus a lot on the cash flowing markets and the cash flowing assets. And that's kind of also what I help a lot of my out of state investors with is how to maximize their cash flow and how to make sure they also buy in the markets where the landlord tenant laws are at least balanced. New York recently passed something they call the good faith, I think, good faith renewal. Basically, you can't just tell someone, hey, your lease is over, it's time to leave. You have to have reason. You have to reason for that the court will find acceptable. Not really my favorite idea for a market.
They just did that in LA. So not all properties were subject to Los Angeles rent control. So what the city did was like, okay, for the properties that aren't subject to rent control, they have what now it's called JCO, just cause ordinance. And that's
Yes.
where if you want to end it, you have to have a good reason, which I could make the argument that if it's a straight investment property to begin with, you almost don't care because it's not like you're going to be moving in. But
Right.
what I think a lot of people forget is that this is almost like a business relationship with your tenants. So if
Mm-hmm.
the relationship just doesn't work, sometimes it is better to part ways.
Absolutely. And also, I heard, and I don't have any New York direct connections, but I've heard through some agents up there that with the just cause, they're making them justify how much they increase the rent. So if you've had a long-term tenant and they're at 850 and the market is 1400, well, okay, you can stay if you go to 1400. I've heard of judges say, I've heard my friends have said they've heard of judges saying, no, you can't. You have to jump $100. That also isn't fair to the landlord because their taxes have gone up to this. And I'm all about being fair to the tenant and whatever, but sometimes the relationship does not work, or you get the person in the situation of, oh, then I could be better off selling. I might as well sell the property and then no longer a just cause because I no longer own it. So I believe very strongly in balanced relationships, but sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes, and also, why should the landlord be stuck aside from rent control areas? And I get it. If you're renting at 850 and the market's now 1500, why should you be stuck at that number? Just because it's a legacy. But yeah, but I think it's important to remind everybody that if you run your numbers properly and you put enough aside for maintenance, vacancy management pads, and you're still making your cap rate or whatever your math is, that you can absorb some lower rent tenants for a while because you have all these great maintenance, vacancy management pads, and you have all these protections. And also, some of your lower rent tenants are your easiest ones because they won't call you for as much stuff. They won't complain as
Mhm.
much.
And look, there have been a lot of studies, and rent control is actually really bad for tenants because it
Hmm.
keeps inventory low. I think I heard somewhere, I did hear somewhere on a podcast, it's something crazy like development's down like 45% in LA.
Yeah.
And it's not cost of construction because builders can work around it, whether they buy the land for less, they negotiate contracts. They're specifically citing policies, government
Yeah.
policies. So it's okay, now you could be the ugliest unit in the world, but also the prettiest because you're the only one that's available.
Absolutely.
My last vacancy here literally lasted about a week and I had
Yeah.
multiple applications. My tenant moved in 3 days after I finished painting.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
that fast because there are no other options.
And we have a couple tenants who they've been with us for a long time and they weren't being good tenants. So we finally said, we're not just going to go up 50 bucks. You know what? You're at 900, market's 12. You've been a bit of a jerk to us. So pay 12 or leave. And I know for LA, those are crazy low numbers, but the general idea is the same. And they all stayed because they
Yeah,
looked around and said, wow, crap, for 1,200 bucks, I'm not getting anything near like this. It might exist. And it's very easy if you provide a good product. And that's the other thing I remind
right.
all my clients on is if you're renting whatever low rent is in your community, look around. Is it what you would be okay with your kid living in college? If you
Yeah,
don't find it reasonable, don't rent it. It may not
yeah,
be granite, tile, beautiful, shiny, but does it feel nice and safe? They feel respected. If they won't, they're not going to respect you, and all sorts of bad stuff will follow.
yeah,
But yeah, and of course every market's different. What that means? What does dipped in gold
sure.
mean?
Yeah, I've noticed. So one of the things that I think a lot of, especially mom and pop investors, they struggle with is they don't realize this is a business and your tenant is your customer.
Yeah.
I hear all these complaints about tenants this, tenants that, then get out of the business.
Yeah.
You're a business owner. At first, I'm not a big fan of rent control. That's been very publicly known, but I'm also understand that there are consumer protections because they are a consumer, right? I buy a
Hmm.
car, I expect consumer protections. I buy electronics, like I have higher expectations for my iPhone because now they cost $1,100.
Yeah.
It's finding that balance, I think, is where a lot of these markets are struggling.
Yeah. And we have
Uh,
a lot of that with I'm sorry.
no, go for it.
We have a lot of that with we run a property management company, and we are the most expensive property management company. Everybody else is 10, we're like 12, 13. And we have clients come to us all the time because we baby our units and we baby our clients, we baby our tenants. We make sure they're getting a high quality thing. And I had this client come to me, or a potential client, he's like, if something breaks, you don't have to fix it. I'm like, no, you don't understand. If it's optional, the tenant would like new carpet. Okay, I'll call you. If it's window breaks, I'm not calling you. We're replacing the window. We have to deliver a quality product. And if you're not okay with that, we're not your property manager. If you're going to be like, oh, how come you replace the faucet instead of just putting duct tape over it? We're not your property manager because you're not. Our reputation goes along our reputation with the tenants, reputation with the neighbors, and that's why I teach all of my students in my classes. Is that's this is a lot of a reputation game in business. Is really what it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
I remember when I was in college, this was before like Facebook was big and Zillow rentals. You used to have to drive to all the property management offices
yeah.
and see what they had available. But
Yep.
you're right. Like I have a tenant in one of my rentals out of state, and they literally found the tenant just from one of their other units they were managing. So it's like clearly that tenant was
Yeah.
so happy with this property manager, they're willing to stay with them. So you're right. If you're like, hey, look, we as a property management have a better reputation, and the tenant community knows this. So with your vacancy being your most expensive expense, we can lower it by X%.
Yep. Exactly. And we just had that happen. My wife called it. We stole a tenant from one of our other clients. Didn't really steal it. They needed something bigger than a two bedroom. So it wasn't like we were taking. Vinny would have lost them anyway.
Right.
But they came to us and said, "What else do you have?" Because they know when we call and when they call, we respond. The response may be, "I'll get to you in a week," but there's a response, and that's all they want.
Right.
Now, on the flip side is when we call on the third or fourth of the month and say, "Where's our rent?" There better be a response, or else and we have other actions to take.
Right.
It's like we tell all the tenants, if something's wrong, let us know. We deal with it. If you simply don't respond, I get a little bit sarcastic and less nice.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so basically, the real estate business, whether you're flipping, whether you're landlording or wholesaling, it's the numbers game. But if you're wholesaling, don't try to squeeze every dollar out of the game because your client is that flipper or landlord. And if they don't
Right.
make money off the deals they sell you, if they call you and say, "What do you have?" "Oh, I have a 3 bedroom in LA for $1 million. Do you want it?" "I don't know. That's not enough. Give me everything, and I'll make a decision." And if you're the wholesaler marking that up to where the flippers, "Ooh, that's tight." If you get that reputation, then no one's going to want to work with you because the flipper or the landlord or whatever your client, your buyer, has to be the one that makes money. Our management clients, they have to be the ones that make the most money. Now, if we have to bring their units up to scale or up to quality or whatever, that's a different conversation. But assuming everything is stable, it's our job in this business to make sure the clients are happy, make sure the tenants are happy, make sure the investors in my property ownership companies are happy. Those are who we work for.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's dive into a little bit about wholesaling. For those listening, and correct me if I'm wrong, basically a wholesaler, they'll have a property under contract as if they were like buying it. Oh, most of the time it's off market. Then they're going to go find an investor to buy it for hopefully a higher price and then either make up the difference. They might have a set finder's fee, something along those lines. Is that the basic premise of it?
Pretty much, yeah. Like a real estate agent, which I'm also a broker, and you have to be careful in wholesaling because many states like Pennsylvania have laws around wholesaling. That's why we founded the
Yep.
wholesale broker, was to be the back office for wholesalers everywhere, but also to be able to work around the different laws and help people navigate, not work around, but navigate somewhere from the stay on the side where you're not going to have the state of Pennsylvania versus you, which is not a good sense to have. But basically, it's kind of like wholesaling anything else. I say a real estate agent is like a consignment store. I'm going to hang my thing in the window of your consignment store, and you're going to call me when you get an offer, and I'm going to tell you whether or not I like the offer. A wholesale is different. I'm not giving a marketing agreement, a listing agreement, a realtor sales agreement. I'm giving a purchase and sale agreement. I'm saying I'll buy your property within X weeks for Y reasons, assuming Z things happen. I give myself 4 weeks due diligence, which is really my buyer cycle. I'll give you $49,000. Give me 4 weeks to look at the property, and I'll then give you a thumbs up, thumbs down. We're going to title or not. And the goal of the wholesaler is to widen that spread between the 49 you have it at and whatever you can get for it, and that's your money. One of the reasons states are cracking down on wholesaling is that wholesalers are very bad at being honest about that. And
Yeah.
people would find out, oh my God, the seller's getting $5,000 and the wholesaler gets $55,000. That's not really fair. But for the most part, it's pretty much a very off-market, fast way to move, and you're solving the seller's problem because for some reason they don't want to list. They don't want to put it on the market and see how much money they can get. They're trading profit or money to them for expediency. Your buyer is hoping that, and sometimes it's true, sometimes it isn't, that off-market deal is a better value than if they found something on market. I tell all investors, look on both. Don't make that assumption. But that's the game, is that the seller needs out fast for whatever their crisis is. The buyer wants the price at a good value, and they don't care how much you're making in the middle. And then your goal is to be able to deliver on both sides. You are still, by most state laws, sellers' disclosure laws don't go away. Lead disclosure laws for the EPA certainly don't go away. And you're probably considered, if you ever face a judge, as a professional dealer of real estate. So you can't say, oh, I didn't know about those laws. The judge will say, then too bad, you should have, because you're in the business. So wholesaling isn't like a Wild West where you do everything, and that's where wholesalers get in trouble.
Yeah. One of the challenges I've seen, because I've started talking to wholesalers out of state for some markets I already invest in, and they all want non-contingent,
Yeah,
right? Versus if it's something with listed with a realtor, you can do your due diligence, but I'm not going to pay for inspections until I have it locked up. But with wholesaling, the expectation is you're buying it no matter what. But so how do you, as a buyer, that always makes me nervous. It's like I could be
yeah.
jumping into surprises.
And I don't agree with most of what regular wholesalers do. Hey, I have a 3-2 in LA for $1 million. Who wants it? That's not even enough on a Facebook post for you to know if you even
Right.
want to swim in that pool. Second thing is okay, I won't say I don't take them. I've done 2 of them this year, but if someone says, here's a price, sight unseen, straight to title, straight to closing, I never do it without title contingency. No way. You're at
Right.
least having a title search. If you're dumb enough to not buy title insurance, that's your problem. But I'm not having a fight later, especially because I'm licensed. But I don't like it if they haven't walked through it. Now, so what I do is I get a property under contract. You send me a proof of funds or some evidence that you're a legitimate buyer. I don't always ask for bank statements, but if I talk to you and you own 40 other properties and you can prove that, all right, I don't need to see
Sure.
up your skirt. I know you're legit. I don't want to waste my seller's time. And then you go send somebody over, whoever your body is, you send them over. They look through the property. We're good, and then we're going straight to title and closing. Like it's not, hey, gee, I need 3 weeks to bring an inspector over. No, if you've walked your people through, maybe you do a second visit, whatever. But for the most part, you're going straight to title and closing. It's also different on the money side of things. I have one which has been a tough property to sell. It's really not, it's a marginal property. And he's, I want my bank, or my bank wants to do inspection or appraisals. Yeah, I said, okay, that's fine. But I said, if I get a better offer, your offer is kicked out. I said, it's not
Right.
contingent on appraisals. Normally in the wholesale world, it's cash, hard money, private money, something that does not require an appraisal. But basically, I don't agree with non-contingent offers of any kind. It's always going to be
Right.
contingent on title. And I don't agree with send me $5,000 and then I'll tell you about it. Or no,
Yeah.
because that to me is a scam. And also, by the way, money should never be handed to any party but a licensed escrow, title, lawyer, whatever your state is. It's not send the wholesaler money. It's not send the seller money. It's not yada yada. It's somebody with an escrow license or whatever that is in your state. Because I actually helped someone go 7 years as a guest of the state of Pennsylvania. And one of the things they did wrong with that was
Yeah.
they didn't give a deposit on their side and they took the buyer's deposit in their pocket. And then when all the eggs fell down, he didn't have the money to give. He didn't give the money back to the buyer. That was the
Mhm.
main reason he went to jail, was fraud. So always use an escrow, title, whatever your state requires for holding that deposit.
Yeah, that was when I was talking to some of these wholesalers. I asked them, I said, look, I'm going to be honest with you. I've not worked with a wholesaler before. I'm legitimate. I've bought property, all that. I don't know you. Because with a real estate agent, there's a license there at stake. One of the most common
Absolutely.
questions I have buyers ask me is, oh, is the listing agent lying? I'm like, chances are they're not lying because they have a license. They probably have a legitimate offer, blah, blah, blah. But on the wholesale side, it's like they can almost say whatever they want because there's
Right.
no fiduciary responsibility to anyone. I think that's one of the big differences because they are selling real estate like a realtor is. Just because the paperwork's done differently, but there's still a transfer of ownership. Because I know South Carolina had the same issue with those laws passing, and that was their argument. But it's like the biggest difference is wholesaler has no fiduciary responsibility to anyone. Is that correct?
Basically true. And actually, now that Pennsylvania has passed a law with SB 1173, which is probably the worst piece of legislation I've ever read, that causes units 1, 2, 3, and 4 to be handled by a licensed agent, meaning the wholesaler must have a license to be working with a broker, but we have to, and even the state and the PAR has totally watched this one badly, and they didn't listen to a lot of things I was saying, is there is no fiduciary responsibility, but no one actually directly is required to tell the seller. I've added additional disclosure that says I am a broker. I am a broker on this deal, but I'm not your broker. No fiduciary responsibility.
Hmm.
Effectively, I'm your enemy, for lack of a better term. I'm part of the profit. Do your own blah, 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 blah. Because there isn't. And many wholesalers run it just like what they think a real estate agent does. Except I've had wholesalers lie blatantly. They've taken my listing off the MLS, sent me buyers, having told the buyers all sorts of wrong numbers about the property.
Mm,
And I call them up, and the answer is anything to make the deal, right, mate? I said, number one, you're selling a listed property, and that's illegal. Number two, no, not anything to make the deal. There's got ethics in wholesaling was the reason I founded the Independent Investment Association, which became the wholesale broker. So that is really the whole purpose here, is that we should not run any business, but certainly not something with these large, money involvements as anything to make the deal. You have to forget laws, yes, but what's right is seller should tell buyer everything they know about the property. Wholesalers should tell buyer everything they know about the property. If the seller doesn't say there's a crack in the basement, you should say there's a crack in the basement if you saw one.
yeah.
If you don't have to have researched it, you don't have to tell them whether or not it's a flood zone. It's not your job. That there is more of a buyer beware element in this. But
Sure.
honesty in wholesaling is one of the reasons the states wrote these laws. I don't think Association of Realtors members or licensed brokers are the right tool for the job, but
Yeah.
they needed a tool and they picked that one.
Yeah. I think it's interesting because like if you're because I think part of the problem, I think hope my guess, because the problem it's hard to track wholesale deals.
Yeah,
There is no MLS for wholesalers. And if on
yeah,
public
I'm actually
records,
surprised they're putting one together. Yeah,
in public records, it's not going to show that there was a wholesale transaction. But now, because we have the clear cooperation policy on the realtor side, we're not technically allowed to have pocket listings. So now wholesalers all of a sudden got a competitive edge. Because they're like, hey, look,
exactly.
we can sell this off market. Versus if they said, all right, you have to have a real estate license, but we're going to get rid of the clear cooperation. You can still
Yeah,
charge a flat fee. You don't have to charge a percentage. And that
and
could be a win-win for everybody.
and in Pennsylvania, okay, so net listing in Pennsylvania, which is, as you might know, is basically a wholesale contract. Basically,
Right.
seller wants 100, anything above 100, agent keeps.
Hmm.
That's and I just we fought on this for a while with a bunch of trying to get to the bottom of it. The bottom line is that's legal in Pennsylvania. The NAR considers it an Article 1 violation. But when the law first passed in Pennsylvania, I called the Association of Realtors Legal Hotline and said, wait a second, I can't do net listing, but I can do wholesale, and which are mathematically the same thing. I'm going
Right.
to give you this number and whatever on top I make. And she said, yes, they're different pieces of paper. I said, do you think grandma, who is selling to a wholesaler for some reason because she's terrified, there's some pressure point. Do you think grandma understands the distinction between two pieces of paper?
Yeah.
It's like that. This simply isn't fair. If wholesale is fair and PAR, yada, yada, whatever, it's all now legal in the way we're supposed to do it. Why don't we just net listing? In which case, we're saying to them point blank, we're living under the same fiduciary laws. I'm your fiduciary, and I'm
Right.
now admitting that effectively I'm totally hosing you on how much I'm making on your property. But I'm giving you more guarantees. I now do net listing. I open a second PAR non-PAR brokerage. I do net listing on some wholesales because I don't have that in Pennsylvania. There's a 30-day right to change your mind, 30-day right of rescission for wholesale agreements. So
Oh,
I go to them and
interesting.
say, listen, I really don't want to do 30-day right of rescission on this deal. I don't want you walking out on me. So I'm going to do as a net listing. I'm your fiduciary, but you understand. I'm promising you 100,000. I'll buy it for 100,000. Anything on top of 100, I keep. You understand that you could do better if you went on the market. No one's ever given me a fight on that. But
Right.
in the law, there's no requirement I have to say that.
Right. Yeah. Some of these markets where like wholesale deals are coming in at like 30 grand. I'm like, how much
Yeah.
margin are you making on this? Like, where's there any money in it? So my guess is they
I
probably make, I don't know, 5 to 6 grand is my guess, but I wouldn't know.
When I first started wholesaling in the Scranton area, and when I first started buying, I'd be bought, fixed, and done on a 3-bedroom duplex for 30,000 a side. Bought, fixed, done everything. I was only renting it for $700. So
Right.
the scale was still down there, but still it
Sure.
was pretty good. I have always said the average, over the last few years, my average is probably 15, 20 grand on an average wholesale. Back then, if I was making 5 grand on a spread, that's great. Because if
Right.
it's only worth 30 grand finished, how much room
Right.
is there to play with numbers after rehab yada? It also depends on the volume of what you're selling and so on and so forth. You're selling commercial, it's a different story. But I had one older couple came to me, wealthy, no real pinch points. They were just sick of the property. And I said, I can buy you for 40. I can list you and probably sell you, this is the top of the market a couple of years ago, for 75. Have you gone just as quickly? They picked the 40. And of course, I resold to somebody 75 the next day. We're at closing. He's like, you made about 35,000 on this, didn't you? I said, yeah. Are you mad? He's like, no, you warned me. He's like, you told me that I should have gone that way. But there are a lot of wholesalers, and I'm one where I've got one on the Western PA right now, down by Pittsburgh. My partner and I are going to split $5,000 on the deal, so we're each going
Yeah.
to take 2 grand home. But it's an armpit portion of Pittsburgh. Some portions of Pittsburgh are great, some are armpits. This is an armpit.
Yeah.
So if I'm selling it for 20 grand, how much can I really make? And especially now in PA, because of the new 1173 law, one thing it forces is it does force, if the wholesaler follows it, which most of them don't, it forces the wholesaler to disclose, at least to the buyer, what they're making.
Yeah.
So if most buyers will say to me, if I'm happy at 20, I don't care if you got it 1,000. But there are some of them say, wait, you bought it for 5 and you're selling to me for 20? That's not fair. And I'm like, you want to know how much Amazon makes when they resell the stuff they're selling to you?
No kidding. I almost don't care. I remember, and this was bigger a few years ago, not as big now, but oftentimes buyers would see, oh, I saw what the seller paid for the property. And I'm like,
Uh-huh.
yeah. Oh, they're asking so much. I'm like, that's the beauty of real estate. It appreciates. Guess what? You can buy it and you can ride that appreciation train too. That's what
Well,
this is all
exactly.
about.
Yep. And whenever one of my buyers says, you only paid this for it, I said, well, that's not what matters. So you look at your spreadsheet, and
Mhm.
even from the buyer's agent, is your spreadsheet happy at 150,000? It's beautifully happy at 150,000. Great. That's all you care about. If he was smart enough that he found the desperate seller or he bought it from grandma or
Yeah,
whatever, who cares? Now, I
I
will tell
agree.
you what my attorney, we were talking about 1173, and he was telling me we were talking about loopholes. He's like, Steve, it really doesn't matter. He's like, because I'm going to burn a wholesaler on the stand anyway. So what do you mean, Joe? He's like, you bought one, and I did. I said, you bought one at New Year's Eve for $25,000, and you found a buyer New Year's Day for 75,000 on the same property. Now, thing closed, everyone's happy, whatever, and we always disclose, you should list, whatever. He's like, but if that guy calls me and I get you on the stand, Mr. Franco, what did you do New Year's Eve to that property to increase its value $50,000 and steal $50,000 in value from Mr. Johnson? And the attorney said to him, he's like, you're going to tell me Mr. Johnson was okay at that number, and I'm still going to make the jury cry, and I'm still going to screw you over. He's like, as long as no one cares, everything's fine. But is it as a wholesaler, if you make it an absurd spread and you steal all the money from the buyer and you steal all the money from the seller, it could eventually catch you. If
Yeah.
everyone wants to take it to a jury trial, he's absolutely right. A jury's going to cry and it's going to be over. So
But
you
to your
always got
point,
to
you
be
take
fair.
advantage because
Yes.
I might be okay with selling my house for 20 grand, but that's only because I may not have known that it could have gone for 70 grand. And I think that differential is probably, yeah, if someone came and knocked on my door and said, "Hey, I'll buy your house for 1.5 million," yeah, dude, where do I sign? But then
Yeah.
all of a sudden the next day they sell it for 2 million, 2 point. I'd be like, that's
Yeah.
crappy, but I agree to it. I would get over it because shame on me. But there are, like, especially now, there's baby boomers, there's people that are older than baby boomers. They're just going to be like, my house needs love. I don't know. The perception is he's the expert.
And most people, regular, I call you from grandma, they don't know they don't know the difference wholesaler versus realtor. They don't
Right.
understand all that. And that's why, and I fought with the state house before they passed this law. I fought with Pennsylvania Association of Realtors, none of whom wanted to listen. Their answer was, we want to look like we did something. It was a law. I said, the first line of 1173, the new PA law, and every state law, it is true in the Philadelphia city law, but not true at the state level, should be, you're required to tell the seller one of two things, either what their property really is worth, or have them sign, you understand you are losing a large percentage of money by doing a fast cash sale. You are trading profit for expediency, or one of the, basically warn them, hey, you're selling your property at a discount. I like to say to them, listen, here are the comps in your area. Here's what I'm going to finish for, minus here's what it would sell for if I listed it. I'm now offering you a third of that, because if you want my cash, that's my number.
Sure.
And then you have all the information. Now the customer can make an informed decision. Now, I assume, and this is fairly true, most of my wholesale buyers don't need that, because they're people like you. They're investors. They understand. They look and say, I like the numbers. They
Yeah.
don't need that babysitting,
No.
but because they feel they're getting a value. But if I'm sitting across from the average grandma, it's only fair that I say to her, either here are the dollars you're losing. I can list you for 75 or buy you for 40. Or listen, you understand you could make a lot more by calling an agent. No, I hate agents. I don't want to even consider that. Okay, great. I've warned you. Now let's proceed. Because otherwise it's too easy to take advantage. There's a guy in Florida bought a beautiful ranch from grandpa literally for $1,800 and sold it for 180,000 the next day.
Wow.
And Florida courts upheld that sale. Actually, it was fine. It was
Hmm.
so too bad you signed it. So anyway, so yeah, so we've gotten off track. But wholesaling can be done right, and we focus,
Yeah.
my training and my wholesale broker and my other programs focus a lot on helping people do it. And YouTube University, I'm on YouTube too, fine, whatever. But YouTube University is not the place to learn this, because you don't know if the person that you're listening to has a clue. Are they legal? Do they do it? Do they do it in your state? Because every state's different. So you
Hmm.
always want to, with any real estate, and like you're buying across the country, and I'm starting to a little bit, same thing. You want to know what are the laws in your state as to where you're buying. And you want to find a good team, a good crew on ground out there. management companies, contractors, whatever, because there's a whole difference between evicting someone in LA than there is in Scranton, Pennsylvania. The laws just aren't the
Right.
same. I'm imagining we're a lot easier than you guys are.
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, totally. It was interesting because when I was buying out of state, like here in California, we have to disclose everything under the sun. So
Yep.
if you have an old inspection report, you have to disclose it. And I
Mm-hmm.
remember I was in escrow on a property out of state, it was in Alabama, and they had just bought it for 80 grand. They were asking like 125 or something. And I'm like,
Yep.
what improvements did they make? Oh, they said they just repainted it, fixed a little bit of plumbing. I'm like, that doesn't seem right. Do they have inspection reports? Like they didn't give us anything. We do our inspections, and then I'm like, hey, I really want to do termite. I really want to do termite. We did termite, and my realtor's, hey, look, termite. I have good news and bad news. Good news is there's a little bit of termite damage, $750. I'm like, not a big deal. So here's the bad news. They ate through the floor joists. That's a whole separate bid. And this was already on top of all these other issues I found with the house. And I'm like, don't they have to disclose this stuff? Because my guess is they repainted the place because they probably saw cracks, right? The stress cracks. And they're like, we have to, and I've noticed the same thing in Missouri, a little bit in Tennessee. They only have to disclose what's material. And I'm like, that's the problem, is how do you define it?
And what I teach, what I was taught, what I teach all my people is material fact, even my clients. I'm like, whatever you call it, because in Pennsylvania, the definition of material fact is anything the party might have considered or might consider would have changed their mind. So I tell people, like, if this woman, oh, I haven't been in the crawl space because I'm too elderly to get in there, but I think there's water down there. I said, well, technically, I can't tell you to put it on the disclosure, but I said you might want to say, not sure, but could reason to believe that because if they do come back. Now, I will tell you, I had a buyer, full seller's disclosure, and he actually did an inspection, so his inspector might have possibly missed it. But he found some stuff later. He's like, I believe the seller knew this. I said, okay, feel free. Here's some your four attorneys. Have a nice time. Call them. Leave me alone. But I said, try to prove that they knew that. I said, you're talking about an average homeowner
Mhm.
who lived in a home, and they said unknown to the question. Try to prove their answer wasn't really unknown. Good luck. You
Yeah.
know.
Oh, yeah. We recently sold one of our rentals because it just wasn't performing. And we held on to it since like last year. So we hadn't hold on to it for that long. But again, it's like you only have to disclose what's material. And so I was speaking with our realtor, he spoke with the broker, and I'm like, you know what? The only way I'm going to feel comfortable with this is if we give them our old inspection reports.
Yep.
And they're like, are
And
you sure you want to do that? I'm like, we're going to give them the old inspection reports. We're going to give them the contractor's bid so they know all the work we did. And that will put me to sleep because I would hate for them because then we do have knowledge and I don't know what it. The foundation's older. Yeah, it was built in like 1900. Of course it is
yeah,
whatever it was. It's almost 100 years old. Is that material? Maybe not out there, but I also don't want to be on the hook
yep.
if they all of a sudden said it was material and I didn't disclose it. Just give them the reports. I don't want, I just, yeah, they're still going to do their own due diligence anyways.
And real quick, I have one that I was the broker on both sides for. One of my clients called me and he had a double, and according to the city of Scranton, it was a double on whatever Park Ave or whatever. And you just always assume that the lot lines go from the named street back, that it's narrower in front
Uh,
and it's deeper that way. So we listed it, we sold it, we traded it. It went from one hand to the other, and then someone bought the neighboring property at tax sale. Just come to find out that the parcels on that street go the other way. So now there's a fight for the last 4 years in court whether the Scranton and when this tax sale came up for the neighboring property, Scranton City renamed my client's property from a double to an empty lot because I think they discovered they screwed up. And now my E&O insurance is covering it. Now everyone says, how would a broker know? It was sold five times before as a double, yada. There was no survey. So now I make everyone sign on every property a waiver that says, listen, if you didn't survey it, I have no knowledge. I only have knowledge of what public records are. If you didn't do an inspection, I
mhm.
have no knowledge because even though everyone colloquially knows that, as a real estate agent, people say, oh, my client, my buyer said that to me. He's like, you should have known. I said, how should I have known? Public records said wholly different things, and it's not mine. I'm not a surveyor. So it's also important I tell all my buyers and sellers, like, listen, if you're at all unsure, it's usually pretty obvious, but if you're at all unsure, get a surveyor, get an inspector. And if you have an inspection report, I just sold a house where they're like, we have the original blueprints from when it was built. I said, great, we'll take it. Do you really need them? I said,
Yeah.
I don't know if I need them or not. but whatever we have, let's just give. Let's just turn over
Exactly.
whatever we have. And that's the way I just believe, as you can tell on this call, I believe in over disclosing, going through
Mhm.
everything to ad nauseum. When I'm teaching people how to analyze deals, like I do a 30% maintenance vacancy management path. Everyone thinks I'm creepy nuts, but okay, I know within 30%, I'm not going down to zero. And on top of that, it better make it 10% or cap rate, or I don't want it. So I'm starting at 40 basically. It's real tough to get to zero. If I'm
Yeah.
making a six cap like in Philly or LA, and I only have enough to pay my management company, it's real easy to end up upside down.
Oh yeah. And there's always like little things, right? Like when we invested in a new market, there was no, because we one of the biggest challenges I've learned is when you inherit tenants when you buy a property, because you're inheriting
Yeah.
that lease. And those, and
Yep.
I've noticed, and it could just be their version of the Wild West. Like the leases could be like a page long. Mine here in LA are like 20.
Yeah.
But even like the littlest things, like who's responsible for snow removal? The
Mhm.
tenants text me saying, "Hey, there was a heavy snow. Do you mind if we just split the cost?" And I'm like, "There's nothing that says it in the lease. I don't really feel comfortable splitting it because what if there's a snowstorm the next day?" So we're like, "Look, we'll split it this time, but going forward, you guys have to be responsible for it because I can't be responsible for the snow."
Yeah. And snow is a great example. I tell all my clients, because out here in the side by side doubles and the smaller ones where everyone has their own private outside door, they treat that like their own thing. But if you've got a shared
Right.
hallway, no one treats it like their own thing. But even in my sixes and my bigger ones, I have snow, ice, and grass in the tenant's thing, even if we do it. And the reason is I might have it shoveled and then that night it melts and refreezes across the sidewalk. Someone falls. It's my fault now. So I tell them like
Yep.
that's got to be external liability. I also don't love my wife's going back to a little bit now, but we don't do leases. We do 60-day auto renewables because COVID moratorium. They
Hmm.
couldn't I couldn't kick them out for non-payment, but I could non-renew them when their lease ended. And so you do have to go and have good papers. And anytime I take over a new tenant, I make them re-sign my document. Now I can't change their lease terms. They're on for a year at $200. I'm stuck with them. But I make sure I get
Right.
them on as much as I can, new paper. But yeah, you have and what I tell everyone is when you first buy a rental, and I know you run into this too, your first year or two are the worst because that's when you
Oh yeah.
find out in where so I'm originally from Boston, and even though stuff is older out there, it's much better built. Out here, it was built by the coal companies storing the immigrants they frankly didn't care about. So it's not built, it's built strong, but not well. So the first year you have it is when you discover they ran the water line outside of the insulation, if there isn't. So I tell people
Mm,
like, your first year is when first couple of years when your maintenance budget is going to be highest. When you're finding what the other guy painted over, when you're finding what, blah, 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 blah. And also when you inherit new tenants, my lease started out as 4 pages, now 16 because every time something went wrong, there's this.
yep.
And the last thing I tell people is you cannot, first of all, if you do live in your unit with your tenants, never let your tenants know you own the property. My parents made that mistake, and the tenants see my father show up in a Cadillac one day, and all of a sudden we're the rich whatevers, and we're not
Yeah.
getting help. But you can't treat them as your friend. It can't be like they're sweet, they're going through a tough time. You can
Yeah.
work with them, but eventually that you have to enforce the paper and say
Yeah.
maybe this apartment is too much for you. We'll work with you. We want to be helpful, but here's the line. Because you've got to pay your bills and you invested money to make a return on it. You're not here
Yeah.
as a charity.
Yeah, I've had that conversation when people are like, oh, landlords need to be more relaxed or this, that. And it's like, because the problem is, like you said, if there's rent caps, but now just to have someone show up on your door now is like $200 for
Mm-hmm.
like plumbing, whatever, is like 2 to 300, like just for them to knock on the door
Yeah.
and say, hey, what's going on? So it's like, now I try to get people to now do yearly inspections. I've been noticing a lot of that where a lot of landlords don't. I didn't in the beginning. I had tenants
Yeah.
stay in my condo for 4 years. Now, granted, I knew them, and I'm like, it's also a condo. I had remodeled it. I lived there before. Like, I wasn't really concerned. But like my property managers do yearly inspections. I do a yearly inspection on one of my units. I just bring my handyman through. We just check everything because it's like
Yeah.
it's all about preventative measures.
And I thought about actually starting a company, and we back off from doing it. But the idea was that landlords and property managers would hire someone to go through once a year, twice a year, whatever your thing is, test all the systems, give a report. And because you have to do that. And the other reason you have to do that, in my opinion, is I can't tell you how many times I've gone into tenants' apartments and 8 a.m. and there's broiled chicken on top of the stove. Okay, or a
Mm.
third shift worker, okay, maybe. But most likely that is simply rodent food. And or you'll go through and gee, what's this plant in the closet with the funny light over it? And okay, depending on your state, your rules, whatever. But hey, Mr. Landlord, there's a pot plant growing here. Or gee, da, da, da. All these things of just are do this. Does this person is the building fine? Great. Your smoke detectors work? Great, because that now is a landlord liability in Pennsylvania. It didn't used to be. And also, is this person living the way you're comfortable having that type of person in your home? Do you feel they're living safely? Are they putting
Mhm.
paper on top of electric baseboard heaters or something? Okay, let the landlord know, let the landlord decide. And also, it lets the tenant know that you care enough to do that. You
Yeah.
care enough to check up, and it's not, oh, this person hasn't been here in 10 years. Why am I paying them?
Yeah. It's funny. I actually told my handyman to do that, where like people could pay him to do these inspections, and then he can
Yeah,
provide a bid to fix everything, and he could deduct part of it from the inspection, whatever. Like I already pay him anyways for us to go through it. It's also an
yeah,
easier sell
exactly.
for the tenant. Like that way it's just a, oh, it's not me being a big landlord. I was like, no, I'm actually bringing someone. So if something's broken, he can fix it on the spot. Because I
Yep,
want them to have, because
exactly.
again, they're our customer.
Yeah. Yeah. And exactly. And the other thing is, and I tell, I'm trying to sell one property for a client, and she's a little bit, how come you have, well, first of all, your price is too high, but second of all, you don't have keys to the property, and the tenants don't want to let us in.
Oh yeah, those are like
So,
hard to sell, if at all.
yeah, and she's like, well, you just let yourself in. I said, with what? I don't have keys. I'm not breaking in. And so I tell landlords, like, we use digital deadbolts everywhere because then my handy
Hmm.
people don't need keys. But also, I like it. My handy people are pretty much fairly consistent, and the tenants get to know them. I don't let them call Carlos
Mm.
directly. And we use a service called Vendoroo, which is like a call center for property management companies. And what's great is the tenant will call up, my furnace isn't working. We'll look at your thermostat. Oh, the screen is blank. Can you throw a couple batteries from your remote control into it? Oh, it's great. It works now. Okay, good. We'll send someone over tomorrow with
Right.
batteries. So it saves that $200 trip for AA batteries at midnight or whatever. And the more responsive you can be for the tenants, the more responsive you can be for the buyers and sellers and whatever. And if you any of your clients, any people out there, if you've got a deal and you want to run deal analysis, give me a call. I'll help you figure out whether it makes sense. I do a little bit of land packages as well. But it's very important, whoever your players are, to be very your players, your customers, your sellers, whoever the partners are, just to be open with them. Say, listen, here's the way we do it. I'm putting you under contract today. We've never seen the house. I need 4 weeks to go see it. This is the way we do it. Are you totally okay with that? Because when you aren't overly clear is when someone gets pissy and sometimes lawyers get involved.
Yep. And I learned from an attorney that it's very expensive to be right. So you could be in the right, but sometimes it's unfortunate. It's very common to do cash for keys here in
Yep.
LA. And it's because the cost of doing the eviction could be so much more. It,
I'm always open to cash for keys. Absolutely.
yeah, and it's somewhat of a challenge. And I had one out of state where they're like, "Hey, look, you can do cash for keys for $500, or we could do the eviction." I'm like, I don't really want to reward bad behavior because I will say that will become, and I think it actually has become a problem here in LA, where it's
Yeah.
now a cultural thing for tenants to know that I can stop paying rent. And what are they going to do?
Yep.
Fight me for years? Or they can pay me, yeah, the relocation might be 20 grand, but really I can get 40 grand out of them.
Oh
And
yeah.
that's not
And I had
okay. That's not okay either.
no. And real quick. So during COVID, we had 6 people. One of our units. We had just renovated, new furnace, new plumbing, about as dipped in gold as that town can handle. And 6 adults working, and then COVID hit. Working at Walmart right through COVID, not a dime of rent. And then they call up with all these repairs. I'm like, okay, great. You haven't paid me in rent, so deduct, fix, and deduct from rent. Their problem, but I have no money. I do, but
Oh,
not for
interesting.
you. I have no money to fix this unit. And they didn't do that. They called the city to condemn the unit, which the city immediately did. One of the things they'd
Hmm.
done was pour, we think it was grease into the sewer lines. And my attorney said, why don't you just pay them $5,000 to go away? I said, bleep, bleep, $5,000. They owe me 12 and they caused this damage. He said, yes. But you now have to put them up in a hotel, 2 hotel rooms because the quantity of people at $200 a night. So it's $6,000 a month from your pocket, $1,000 a month in their rent, and they're never going to pay it anyway. So how many months do you really want to pay out for
Yeah.
hotel rooms? Because he's like, just pick a number, get rid of them, and then sue them for it. He's never going to get it anyway. But he's like, mathematically, you have to cash for keys this. There's no moral reason. There's no validity to it,
Yeah.
but it's simply the cheapest way out of the room.
Yeah. I remember 'cause I manage a landlords group in Southern California, a Facebook group, and I remember doing a video where I was like, look, if you need to do cash for keys, a lot of these homes have a lot of equity. You could consider doing a line of credit. That way it's available. So when they move
Yep.
out, then you can immediately give them the money. So many people in the group gave me so much crap for it. Why should I have to pay? I'm like, look, this is a business decision. I'm not
Right.
saying it's the right thing. I understand philosophically you're basically rewarding bad behavior. I get all that, but this is a business decision. And if they're paying 800 bucks a month when you should be getting 3,000, you'll make up that money really fast.
Exactly. And every part of this, you're absolutely, every part of this is a business decision. Also, what I tell people is one of my clients owns this pizza shop in his personal name, free and clear, $4 million property, owns all of his rentals, free and clear, free and clear. I'm like, no. He's like, what do you mean? I don't need the money. I said, great. Lay line of credits on all of them. Because he wanted to
Yep.
sell up here and buy in Florida. I said, first of all, lay line of credits on all of them so then you don't take money out of your pocket for Florida. I know you have big pockets. But the other thing you got to miss is it's a business decision. And if you have a slip and fall, you have whatever the incident is, I'm the attorney on pay, and insurance wants to offer me $100,000, and I find out that you own this property free and clear. Oh, we're no longer good with $100,000.
Interesting.
I
Good
find out that
point.
you own yada yada yada. I even told him, I said he resisted going and getting a line of credit. He's like, cost me money. Yeah, okay, cost you a little bit of appraisal money, but it really doesn't cost you anything. I do DSCR, I do line of credit, I offer all that crap. But I said, fine, then have your daughter do you a paper loan. Whether you transfer money around, that's your attorney's question. But fine, your daughter is your bank. And just the point is, you want that poison pill on the deed. And so I tell
Mhm.
people everything in this game is a business decision. Should I have a line of credit? I love line of credit. I buy most of my properties, my down payments are all lines of credit. So
Yeah,
that's
that's
why
what
when
I've
I
done.
analyze the property, yeah. So when I analyze the property, I never considered my deposit money to be free. It's making 8% wherever it is, or the line of credit cost me 8%. So I'm paying mortgage on 100% of my purchase. It
Right.
doesn't work. It doesn't work. But yeah, it's like always, I'm a fan of doing that, and everything's a business decision. Should I replace the carpet in this apartment or not? It's an ugly carpet, but it's not going to bring you any more dollars. So it's perfectly fine. It's just the 1970s color. I don't know if you want to replace it, great, but that's 2 grand that's not going to increase your income.
Mhm.
You decide what you want to deliver as a product.
Yeah.
Everything to me is people say, how much do you like the property? I said the biggest mistake I ever made was buying a property I liked. I don't have to like it. I'm not going to live there.
When it comes to
I had one
renovation,
lady.
go for it.
No, go ahead.
Oh,
When it comes to
yeah, when it
renovations,
comes to renovations, yeah. I what I tell people is like, look, there's two ways to look at it. There's dollar value and then there's marketing value. So to your point, you could replace the carpets. Are you going to get more rent? No. Will it rent faster? Potentially. If it so you're saving on carrying costs. There are certain things that it is worth spending money on, but you're not just going to get a dollar. But it can be hard to navigate through that sometimes. And it's also hard for some people to wrap their head around it.
and that's why if you don't know, we started buying buildings, and our agent for our first and third building was just a regular residential realtor. So we had nobody guiding us.
Hmm.
And then you eventually figure out, okay, this is a C grade apartment. It won't rent any faster or do any better looking granite and tile than
Right.
Formica and laminate flooring. For that resident, they don't care. If you're doing an LA or upscale, whatever, okay, great. And also, I'm on a podcast with Joe Scarice Sunday morning on Clubhouse. He's a national private lender. And he, in all of his units, and he does some pretty high end units, he does this like sheet Formica stuff on the walls for the first 4 feet. And not all of them, but a lot of them. It looks nice, and it basically can't be broken. He's like, so
Mhm.
when you and his whole point is when you renovate, and I do the same thing. I do only luxury vinyl plank. It's
Mhm.
pretty, it's nice, but also it's pretty much indestructible. Their dogs can pee on it, they can pee on it, no one cares. It's not gets vinyl, it's not changing. So you do it, and actually the same LVP I put in my cheaper apartments up in in Scranton. My sister has in her very expensive apartment in DC. I'm like, oh, okay, I guess this is a good choice. It works. But you always have to, and there will be times where, okay, does it pay for me? Like a lot of Joe's buildings, he'll provide free Wi-Fi. He'll provide some of these other
Yeah.
amenities. There is a group of tenants, especially in the more metro areas, that want that. They want the in-building. It's worth taking out an apartment, putting in a gym because your tenants want the gym on site, whatever. That part you have to navigate or work with someone who can navigate. What does the tenant audience want? What does the flipper audience want? If you're in a whatever, your warehouse worker type flip area, well, you're not doing the level of finishes that you will if you're in the doctor lawyer flip area. You're just not delivering the same product. So know who you're delivering the product for and know what's gonna goose those things. One thing that I find in my flips that gooses it is people love the smart switches now. People love that they
Mm.
control everything with their phone. Yeah, it costs me another $25 a switch. But people are like, oh my God, smart switches. Okay, great, go for it. That kind
No,
of,
it's true. It's so true. I have a client, I help him buy properties for college housing, so he'll rent by the room. So some of the things we
yeah,
look at is like, is there an area where they can study? That could be could we pop in a little desk in this corner and it becomes like almost like a business center, right?
yeah,
Furniture's cheap,
yeah.
but it gives them that impression because you're competing against the dorms at that point.
Yeah, and like I'm starting to do Airbnb arbitrage, renting and
Mhm.
releasing and whatever, and we're starting to do little computer business centers. Not that everyone probably doesn't travel with their laptop now, but they don't have to. And there's a little printer, there's a little $200
Mhm.
computer, and yada. And the other thing that I've looked at on the that a local mayor out here, she said, don't do college rentals and look very carefully before doing college rentals because a lot of colleges enrollment is shrinking and the
Mm.
colleges are turning former school buildings into dorms. The enrollment may not be shrinking, but their on-campus enrollment is shrinking. So what I tell everybody is, I love college rental. I have several of them, but I'm only paying for a college rental. What I'll be able to, if the college goes away, what am I still going to rent it for?
Of
What's my
course.
regular survival rental? Because if that same thing with Airbnb, if they wake up tomorrow and they outlaw Airbnb, which they can do in Pennsylvania because there is no law supporting it, okay, then what am I really renting this in the real world? But yeah, when you are setting up something like a college rental, or I do a little bit of nurse short-term stuff. All right, that traveling nurse, she would love the idea not to have to travel with her printer, not to have to
Right.
travel with her whatever. Okay, so I'm going to throw in those kinds of features available. That there's a laundry in the basement if there isn't one in the unit. So think about if you are targeting that audience, what kind of little things can you throw at them?
Yeah. And it doesn't cost a lot of money, but it makes such a huge impact.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's the end of the game. And I am not a people type person. Honestly, I'm much more of a, I used to be a chief engineer for TV stations and so forth. So I'm much more of a technology guy. But the emotional response you get from the investment is very often worth a lot more than the investment.
100%.
That little business center costs $1,000, whatever, little desk, little this, little that, fine. But the person says, oh, wow, that does make my life easier. Or just, I know it's there, whatever. Whatever that little feature is. Already stayed a lot of Airbnbs. I wish they would just leave their Netflix password in so I wouldn't have to go dig and install mine. I could just turn on and watch a show.
Yeah.
A stupid example, but that anything you can do to goose it a little bit for your customer.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's it.
Yeah, I totally agree. This has all been great. Now you run like an asset mastermind membership. Can you go into kind of what some of the features that you help people with?
Yeah, so basically, so I do a lot of higher level consulting, working with people at what I call a C level of whether it's a real estate or non. And I have courses on wholesaling and everything else that are intensive training courses where I do joint venture and you get your course money back from deals we do together. But I came up, and I am always looking for salespeople and people to find me deals. But in the middle, I came up with the asset mastermind as the lot. It's really for me, it's a loss leader. I charge people like $300 or $500 a year, and I'm doing 2 hours a week live. Plus, they're a part of my free JV program, so they're really getting 3 hours a week, and they're getting an online community and whatever. So it's basically where we cover everything. Where I'll mix it up. But let's say on Monday I'll do an hour on deal analysis. On Thursday, I'll do an hour on flipping. And then on Wednesday is our wholesale free JV, learn how to sell, learn how to get sellers. And then 24/7, you're on our online community and you can message me through there and so on and so forth. And we can joint venture on deals. But I looked at it as I had a very bad experience with, or many bad experiences with free training because they treat it like YouTube University. They'll take the information, they never come back and do deals together. So I said, okay, this asset mastermind, they're investing a little something. They're not investing a lot, but they're getting 2 to 3 hours of live connection a week. They're getting a 24/7 community. They're getting the availability to bring their opportunities and questions here. And if they want a joint venture, then we can make a lot more money together. But the point is, it's really a loss leader. Yes, when I get 1,000, 2,000 people in it, that's going to be a big number. But for right now, it's more a matter of I'm allowing people to get in the game, to start small, and then if they say, oh, I really love deal analysis, let me take Steve's course on that. Okay, great, we can move you over there. But it's a way of starting a community. It's also a way of starting a community and learning who comes on board, has the ethics and drive to be somebody that I can work with longer term. Because I've brought not many, but enough people have come on board. I'm like, yeah, you're great, you're smart, you'll probably do wonderfully, but you're not a fit here. Maybe I don't want to say you're not ethical, but you're just not a fit here. Whatever.
Yeah. Okay. Very nice. As we wrap this up, is there anything else the audience should know, whether it's about you, what you do?
Yeah, so real quick. So I bought my first building in 1997 when I was still in television, and I didn't pay much attention. It was a warehouse in Boston. My brother's store was there. And so I've been in real estate for a long time. I'm launching 2 self-storage facilities from ground up. I'm buying a third one, probably that's going to have a mobile home park attached to it. And the best way that I can help people is I would prefer to be the guy guiding people. My 3-year goal is to not be on the street doing transactions anymore for other people, but to be able to say to my agents and wholesale broker team members and whatever, hey, you're on the street, call me and I'll guide you through it. I'll be your broker. I'll do your back end, your deal analysis. So I want to help people right now with doing whatever will make them the most money. I pay up to 90%, 100% to my team members if they join. And wherever you're at, if you want to learn deal analysis, you want to talk over deals, you want to look at lending, whatever, that's the reason I have REI homepage, which connects all of my projects together, and the asset mastermind and the wholesale broker. Those are 3 legs at this point. And yeah, you can always reach out to me by phone, 570-798-7051.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you so much, Steve, for hopping on. This has been really cool information. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right.
Appreciate
Thank you,
your
everyone,
time
for
so much.
listening. Yeah. And we'll talk to you guys next week.
All right. Thank you, guys.
All right. Thanks for tuning in to The Key to the City of Angels. I hope you found today's episode helpful as you navigate the world of Los Angeles real estate. Whether you're looking to buy your first home, expand your investment portfolio, or sell in this competitive market, I'm here to help you succeed. Let's connect. Visit my website or follow me on social media to learn more about how I can help you achieve your real estate goals. And if you're ready to take the next step, don't hesitate to reach out. I'd love to work with you. If you've enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who might benefit. Together, let's unlock your potential and make your real estate dreams a reality.